Hello guys and welcome back to another video, and today we are back with another episode of History Changed. This is episode 4, I believe, and we're going to continue with how things are going. So we have the major global war happening. Now we'll mention a few things before we get started, like Germany needs to secure resources around the Caucasus if they would ever want to win the war. So if they can knock out the Soviets, then that would be a great thing if they wanted to win the war, because then they could get more resources and tackle Africa, maybe even Asia. If they want to win the war, they need to knock out the Soviets very soon. Will that happen? Well, let's just find out. As we've seen in the last episode, the Germans are being able to push through. They'll do a siege on St. Petersburg or Petrograd, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And they're going to do a little bit of shenanigans down here in the Caucasus. But it's going to be heavily defended against. Iran will also be able to push out the Axis invasion, and we'll start pushing into these countries, colonies, trying to liberate these territories. Now the Germans, they need to push over Moscow, which is probably like around right there, I'd say, or right there, either one. But the resources shortage is setting in. The advantage to connect these two fronts together. I get a little bit more of a push done. But that's really about it for the Germans. They can't knock down the Soviets, no matter how hard they try. So, yikes. But what's happening in Asia? Japan is now in the war, and how will this affect everybody? Now that they've solidified more resources, they managed to push out even better. And they start bombarding, the French have already fallen, so the Japanese will be able to get Indochina, and they'll start a push into the British Raj. And I feel like the British Raj would just be like, we don't want to fight this war, what if we just switch sides? So the government will eventually turn against them. So now the Raj switches sides. Why did they switch sides exactly? Well, it's just simple. They want independence. They're just going to be suffering from this war. They already pretty much wanted independence around this time, so might as well make them switch sides. This is a huge blow to the Allies, who lost a bunch of fighting men through this surrendering, or switching sides. Japan is about to do a Siberia campaign. Don't know why that keeps getting brought up when I am trying to do things. Anyways, Shanna wants it. Anyways, the Japanese are doing great things for themselves. They could win this war eventually against China, but it would take pretty long, but it is possible considering that, the British Raj could push in from here, causing a war on multiple fronts for the Chinese people. This is a scary reality, all because of this fella trying to, critique and stop the world wars in general. But now the Axis in Africa will just start wombo comboing them. Iran's managing to hold on here for the most part, and the Italians will hook up here. They'll then start to go down the coast here, and Africa is just getting absolutely wombo comboed. Eventually colonies will switch sides, and they'd start to push out. This is really not a great deal for the Allies. They might want to sue for peace now, but let's go up to the British in Europe. They still have hope because the Soviets will start barreling the Germans down. They just need time, and soon the time would come as the Japanese would attack the Americans right here in the Philippines, and also Pearl Harbor would occur. So now the Americans are going to be fully in the war. Yikes, this is bad for pretty much all the Axis. I mean, the Japanese theater, that could go very well for them, but I don't know about much else. I mean, Japan would certainly have control over Indonesia by now, and as well as British Malaysia, and they'd certainly be able to run down the Philippines and even get Papua New Guinea. But now they need to refocus their efforts onto China, or else they will probably lose the war. They start connecting their invasion forces and start to push in. It would take months of fighting. This wouldn't be easy for the Japanese to necessarily do, but they managed to push in quite decently, and the British Raj would get up a massive force and start pushing in. Their goal is to just keep going. They managed to also invade parts of the Soviet Union, but they would retreat from those parts as they don't want to do too much with the Soviets. But then the Soviets start shooting, so they're like, screw that. Then they just make a war plan for the Soviets as well. And the goal is to start connecting territories. So the Japanese start going, and they manage to split the Chinese front into the world's biggest encirclement. Like, right here is a weak point for them, I'd have to say, because the population lives around the coast. There's some population here, but up there is where they have really weak. I'd say they managed to get that. So now they just need to capture this territory. The less populated areas would certainly get captured at some point. But now we have people and mountains. So these people would pretty much get wiped out eventually. But these people over here are just hiding in the mountains. Back to Europe, we'd see the Soviets start to push back, and they managed to kick them out of the Caucasus, as well as they'd start to invade Turkey, who would then switch sides. They'd pull in Italy, and yeah, this would just cause a huge disturbance in the forces over here. That would cause Africa to go back into the Allied favor. American troops would eventually land in Africa, and all of Africa would just slowly be Allied controlled. I'll just show it very quick. All that's now Allied controlled, and how the Europe crumble is the next question. But now they have all of Asia to worry about after this, so this is going to be a very, very long war. Soviets would manage to push through and get all the way over here. They managed to recover the Baltics, as the Allies have now done something incredible. They're starting an invasion of South Italy, which has gone successful, and now Italy is on a different side. They also managed to go in southern France, and they have a new front in Spain, basically a continuation of the African campaign. Eventually Spain would be whooped out. D-Day would happen, you know, and then it's just basically who can get to Berlin first. Soviets would definitely be barreling down, and they'd definitely capture it way before the Allies can. I'd say they would likely get towards here, and then the Allies would come, you know, and they'd barrel down the rest. So now Europe's dealt with, but now they have a whole new theater in Asia. And a very bad move, the Americans will do campaign. They'd eventually manage to capture all these territories back, and they'd eventually go on a campaign, you know, recover the Philippines, Taiwan, all this funness that they want to do, of course. They love army campaigns, don't they? They managed to climb up, and eventually they'd do some nuclear bombing. And Japan will surrender. That will cause everything to go bad for the British Raj, who it's now the whole world versus the British Raj, and with just one nuke used on them, they'd have to surrender. This is 3 nukes used to end the war. Not 2. 1 more, because of the British Raj. Now, we have to redraw Europe. This was the map before the war, so this is a map we will have to work with. The Soviets would definitely get a huge chunk from the Germans, you know. This timeline's a bit different, so I feel like we'd have some different outcomes. The Soviets would manage to take some land from the Germans. They'd definitely still set up like an East Germany type thing over here, but the rest would go to the Allies, and they'd obviously give France back some land, much to I do not like this idea of giving France more land. France is just boo, why France? Their border looks goofy, but what will happen down in the Balkans? The Soviets will seize this territory as well as some territory from Bulgaria. The borders certainly look a teeny bit better now. They're gonna get these lands from Hungary because, you know, they've done bad things. And now the Soviets will basically have a puppet state installed right here. This also is a puppet state. Them, hold on, I need to recolor all that. Them, definitely Bulgaria, not Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia wouldn't be a puppet state, but they'd have 3 puppet states, majorly. Maybe even, you know what, they'd get Turkey as a puppet state. And what would happen with the colonies in Africa? I feel like in this timeline, the British would get Libya, and they'd get everything around here. The French would have to cede some land over. Boom. The British Empire has grown, but, you know, India isn't a or the British Raj isn't a part of it anymore. They're going to be a new color. I guess this weird green color they will be. We have China unified here, although they're not unified here, but we'll have a Korean state with much bigger borders than our timeline to exist. We'll be giving back all these lands, and even Taiwan now exists. Let's see, Korea. Korea is now like a democracy, I have to say. And yeah, this is pretty much what the world looks like after the war. Yes, Japan would have to give back Sakhalin. Japan is pretty much the same after this. French would sadly get Spanish Africa. Horrible times. Anytime that someone's hoping for an Axis victory, it will never really happen in any of these scenarios, An Axis victory is very unrealistic. Do not expect it to happen. Anyways, that's it for this episode. We've ended off the war and have some, not too many border changes, but some border changes. Geopolitics in this series has just flipped on its head. And if you guys liked this video, make sure to hit that like button. If you really liked it, then make sure to subscribe. Watch my other series if you haven't already. If you haven't seen any other episodes, binge the playlist. It's not that hard, and I need watch hours anyways to get monetized. Anyways, goodbye.